Good morning, good morning. Welcome to our monthly LT Senior Services webinar. We are so happy to have you all here today. We have an incredible group of people that will be speaking today on topics about clinical trials and older adults and why it's important. It's just a great topic. We're so excited to have them all here today. We are thrilled to have this be our monthly webinar. Our webinar next month is going to be on how to pay for retirement living. We have a great panel of people that will be helping us to determine just how you can pay for your senior living. And we also are going to have our Aging Well Expo, and it's going to be sponsored by Alzheimer's Texas. We're super excited for that. That's going to be in September. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to all of you coming. We actually have a poll. I'm going to go ahead and operate the poll right now. And the poll is, do you feel comfortable attending an in-person event in the near future, such as the seminars or the Aging Well Expo? And we would love for people who are attending today's webinar, if you would just go in and say yes or no, not sure. We appreciate you letting us know this information. It helps us in our planning for the future. Right now, all of our webinars are going to be online. We're not going to be having any webinars or seminars in person this year, but we are planning for next year. And so we're just trying to get a kind of a heartbeat and find out what people are thinking. So it looks like our poll right now, it looks like it is 59% of the people say they feel comfortable coming, 2% say they are not comfortable coming, or excuse me, 12% are not comfortable coming, and we have 29 people who are saying not sure. I think I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. And hopefully you can see me. If you have any kind of technical problems, you're doing exactly the right thing. Just go into the chat. You can put your concerns in the chat. You can also put your questions and answers in the chat, or you can go down to the question and answer area. To find those areas, just kind of scroll down with your mouse, look in the very bottom. You'll see an area that says question and answer, and then you'll see another that says chat. And you can actually put your questions in either one of those. So LT Senior Services is a resource for seniors and their families in the Lake Travis area. We have members. We have about 45 members in our group, and this is our member directory. This is the 2020 directory, but we have a 2021 directory. And we're really excited about this directory. If you would like one, you could text us. We can email one to you. And we'll also be giving them away at our upcoming Aging Well Expo. And that Aging Well Expo is September 29th. And it's going to be held at the Lake Travis, oh my gosh, where is it going to be, Natalie? I'm having a,
Activities, Lakeway Activity Center.
Thank you, Lakeway Activity Center. That's where it's going to be. The event will have lots of speakers. We have lots of exhibitors who are going to be there. We're super excited to be able to offer flu shots. We are going to have a process for signing up for the flu shots, so you'll be able to get your flu shot there. And we'll have lunch and breakfast. And in the afternoon, we're actually going to have a, what would you call it? It is an employment fair. And so we're going to have employers there who will be looking for people who are over 50 who are looking for employment. So we're super excited about that too. So that's all happening at the end of September, September 29th. You can go to our website, ltseniorservices.org, for more information about those and to sign up for all of those. So without further ado, let me see if we have some other LT members on our webinar today. And we do. I know Anne Maloney is here. Anne, would you like to talk about Be Well MD?
Good morning, of course. Thank you, Cindy. Hello, everybody. I'm Anne. I'm representing Be Well MD. We are a medical practice designed specifically for seniors. We're unique in that we come into the homes of seniors around the city of Austin, Lake Travis and beyond. Dr. Carlson, who is the guest speaker today, he's our medical director. He's the founder of Be Well MD, fellowship trained geriatrician. So we provide primary care in the home. So think of us as the hub of all medical care. So for the patients that we serve in the home today, Dr. Carlson and our medical team manage the primary care services. We manage medication. We manage specialists. So if our patients need any type of specialty service, lab service, physical therapy. Our medical team helps patients and their families manage all of that. So we are a 24/7 service. Dr. Carlson and the team are available. Once you become a patient of our concierge service, you have access to our medical team at all times, day and night, and we would be available to you at any time. So that's Be Well MD. Please, if you have any questions or would like to learn more, you can let Cindy know and I can reach out to you.
And would you mind go ahead in the chat area and just put your contact information or a website where people can go to learn more about you?
Of course, be happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne. I see that
you.
we have Karen Ballinger. Karen, would you like to talk about the library?
Hi, thanks again for having me. Yeah, the library is open. We're very, very happy to have you all in the building now. So we're open now from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. And then Wednesdays is a longer day. We're open until 7 in the evening. So before we were closed during the day. So now we're open every day, Monday through Saturday. We're still closed on Sunday. So we're really, really happy to have people in the library again, and people are using their computers and reading the newspaper and all that. And then the newsletter just went out this morning. We are going to start taking donations. I don't know, for anyone who's been to the library, we had the Nancy's Nook area when you walked in the double doors and to the right, and that was our book sale area. But because we're having more reservations, we took that space over, so the reservations are there. But now we gave Nancy the teen room, and all the friends of the library are going to open a bookstore in the coming months. So we're starting to take donations. We ask that you please only bring them on Wednesday evening and then Saturday morning. So we'll have people there to help get everything inside, and we have volunteers now who can go through and sort all the stuff for the book sale. But we're excited that's coming up also. So we're just glad to see you all again in the library.
So when people donate the books, it's not that the books will be used in the actual library, but you're using them for a sale. So that means bring all your books, any kind of books that you might have.
Well, we ask no encyclopedias, I think, no Reader's Digest, and books in good condition. So sometimes we do go through the donations and see if we can use them in the collection. But if not, then they'll go for the sale. And if not that, usually we donate them to another place like Salvation Army. So we know that people have been holding their books to bring to the library. So if you want to try and maybe meter it out a little bit, I don't know how overwhelmed we're going to be at the beginning. But yeah, so a lot of them will also go to the sale, and the proceeds will benefit the library.
And when will the sale be?
So the bookstore isn't going to open for another couple of months. So right now we're just taking the donations to get it stocked up. And I think there'll be an announcement about that. We're hoping it'll be sometime this summer, but we're not quite sure when. Hopefully in August. But yeah, I know people have been asking a lot if we're actually taking donations. So now the answer is yes. Although we're asking again, if you could do it Wednesday evening and Saturday morning, we would appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, thank you as always. You guys have been such a great supporter of our events. We appreciate you getting the word out. Do you have any fun events coming up this month that you want to tell people about?
So we're still doing programming on Zoom. I'm sure there's something that I should be promoting that I am forgetting. But thank you. We still have the speaker series happening. We still have book clubs happening online. So every Thursday now there is a performer for the summer. So this week's performer is Puppet Pie doing puppet workshops. So there's 2 puppet workshops happening on Thursday. So we're continuing that through the end of July. So we have different performers coming up. So that's really exciting. And that's for all ages. And we also had our summer reading challenge. And so the community read over 100,000 minutes. So we're really proud that the friends are going to be able to donate money to the 2 food pantries in the area, like Travis Crisis Ministries and Helping Hand Crisis Ministries of Spicewood. So thank you all for reading and logging your minutes. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Natalie, I'm just looking to see if there's any other members that might want to come in and do a quick intro of their nonprofit or something else like that. And if we don't see any, then we'll just go ahead and ask Dr. Carlson and Tracy Christianson to come into the view. So just make your video live. We just marvel at this whole Zoom thing and how we're able to communicate. Dr. Carlson, I didn't even ask you, where are you today? What city are you in?
I'm in Cedar Park.
Oh, you are in Cedar Park. Okay. And Tracy, I heard you're in Nebraska today. Is that right?
That's correct.
And this is the beautiful part of Zoom. We can be wherever and we can still be on screen and communicating to all of our constituents. So we're so happy to have you here. Let me just do a quick bio for Dr. Mark Carlson. He is, of course, a member of LT Senior Services, and he is a fellowship trained board certified geriatrician, internist, and oncologist with 25 years of healthcare experience. He received his medical doctorate from Loma Linda University in California and completed his geriatric medicine fellowship at the University of Hawaii in Honolulu. Tough job being in Hawaii. I know.
No, don't worry, I'm okay.
You suffered through. Prior to his move into geriatrics, Dr. Carlson spent nearly 20 years of practice in medical oncology, where serious illness had to be managed with the latest in medical technology, compassion, and in a trusting patient-doctor relationship. Dr. Carlson combined this experience with a strong desire to help seniors in the aging process to create Be Well MD. Be Well MD is a medical practice designed specifically for aging adults, providing the highest quality medical care to individuals living in private residence and in senior living communities. Be Well MD also provides transitional care for seniors discharged from hospital and rehab back to home. Dr. Carlson's personal mission is to help seniors live healthier and happier lives. Welcome, Dr. Carlson.
Thank
Tracy, Tracy is a biochemist with extensive experience in medical research. The first 25 years of her career focused exclusively on oncology. At Oregon Health Science University Medical School, Tracy studied hormone-related cancer, contributing to the early development of drugs like Herceptin, and I'm not going to be able to say those, so sorry. What are the names of the drugs?
Herceptin,
Okay.
and probably Gleevec.
Yes, yes, thank you. Both of these drugs are considered cures for certain types of cancers. This experience transformed her vision for how research can contribute to better medicine and better therapies. In a series of moves, Tracy advanced her career in clinical research, working on numerous clinical trials around the country. Having managed research grants and departments, Tracy has had opportunities to conduct clinical studies for all different indications, including women's health, men's health, general health, vaccine research, and a new passion, Alzheimer's research. Love that. She currently serves on the Leadership Council for the Alzheimer's Association. Tracy joins Dr. Carlson as a partner in Be Well Clinical Studies, a landmark opportunity to serve the elder population and provides focused clinical research to address and improve senior health matters. Welcome to you both. We're so excited to learn more about clinical studies. And Dr. Carlson, I think you're just going to start first, just give us a brief overview. And then we've got a list of questions to ask you, and then we'll be monitoring all of the question and answer forums that we have on the webinar today. So without further ado, Dr. Carlson.
Well, thanks, Cindy. First, I have to thank you personally for putting together Lake Travis Senior Services, because it is, I've been part of it, I think from the inception, and the work you and Natalie are doing is commendable and needs to be acknowledged. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
So I think from a clinical research perspective, we're going to be able to share a little bit about what we do with Be Well MD, the geriatric practice, as well as the clinical studies aspect of it. And so I would invite you to just start the questions, and we can lead in with that, and then get to question and answers, because I suspect the audience will have some questions after our talk.
I have some too, as I always do, huh?
Sure.
Well, as a geriatrician, how did you become interested in clinical research?
Yeah, my interest in clinical research goes back to my days in oncology. Many of you probably have heard this, but maybe not everybody. Clinical research and the drug development process is such that about half of all drugs that are in development are in the realm of oncology. And oncology has made leaps and bounds forward. And about 10 years ago, when I decided to transition into geriatric medicine, I took that research experience that I developed during oncology or in oncology, and I realized that there was a need to apply it in geriatrics. Alzheimer's disease is the only disease in the top 10 that does not have a disease modifying drug available. And so I found myself in this unique position with the experience in oncology and knowing how to use all of the tools available to us, the biochemistry, the biomolecular tools to target treatments. And now I'm trying to apply that to the elder population, specifically around the disease of Alzheimer's.
Excellent. Well, can you describe how medical research affects the way that you care for your patients every day?
Yeah. First of all, everything we do in medicine now is hopefully based on evidence. And that is relatively new. And so maybe Natalie could, or you or Natalie could put up the evidence-based medicine slide. When I started my medical education back in the 80s, we had largely a type of training that was based on clinical experience. And if you look at the way medicine has evolved, 200 years ago, we talked largely about the art of medicine because it was more art than science. But now we try to meld the individual clinical experience along with the best external evidence, as you can see on this slide, as well as the patient values and expectations. And 150 years ago, it really was on the shoulders of the doctors, but we've evolved to include the patient experience, the patient goals and values. And now over the last 20, 30 years, we are applying the best external evidence as effectively as possible into this new paradigm of evidence-based medicine. So when I learned medicine starting back in the 80s, we really didn't talk about evidence-based medicine. My daughter, Michaela, is a junior medical student, and she is learning evidence-based medicine from day one. It was one of the big classes that she has been part of from freshman year onward. And it just gives you a little bit of an example of how medicine is evolving, and the clinical research and the evidence that is added to this triad is really the biggest change over the last 20 years, I think, in terms of how we're approaching medicine. And so the evidence-based medicine is something that is affecting every patient every day, and it is going to be more and more so as medicine evolves further in the coming years and decades. And I might ask Tracy to add to that in terms of how clinical research affects patient care.
Thank you, Dr. Carlson. I wanted to just emphasize that there is still a real need for new and improved treatment options. And we are including that to be very important in, our elder communities as well. And to understand that in order to get to those new and improved treatments, we cannot do that without volunteers that are age appropriate. So we're talking about Alzheimer's, but we're talking about really a little bit of everything. And I started working with Dr. Carlson about 20 years ago in oncology research. And as he just mentioned, about 50% of all the trials out there are focused on oncology. But having moved into more general medicine, one of the most exciting things for me and Dr. Carlson, I think, is that we're seeing a lot of the drugs that were developed for oncology have use in other indications. So I think that's really important for people to understand that all of the research that Dr. Carlson is talking about that has led to the evidence-based research-driven medicine is to be able to say all that research focused on a specific cancer per se is showing indications in things like rheumatology, your gastroenterology. We're even seeing some cancer drugs that are helping in ophthalmology. So it's important that we continue to push forward, looking at new drug opportunities, but also the drugs that we have developed for other indications that might be useful. But again, the focus needs to be, and the understanding needs to be, that we have to have age appropriate participants. And I think that's just a really important thing that we want to be able to discuss. And I hope that that evidence-based explanation makes sense, but if not, you can ask us further questions.
I was just going to look and see if I do have any questions right now regarding it. Oh, well, this is kind of an off question, but is this care covered by Medicare? So I think the question probably is, when you participate in these clinical trials, is there a charge? Should I have this go away, by the this graphic go away, Dr. Carlson?
Oh, yeah, please.
Okay. So when somebody participates in a clinical trial, would it be covered under Medicare? I was wondering, are the participants paid? How does all of that work?
Yeah, and it varies from trial to trial, but Medicare and Medicaid, CMMS, has mandated that if there is a clinical trial that an elder or anyone can participate in, and that there is a desire on the individual patient level to participate, that they cannot interfere with that. It depends upon what phase of clinical study that you're in. In many of the trials that we participate in, the sponsor are the drug companies, and those sponsors will actually pay participants to be part of the trial. And so they are compensated for their time and effort very frequently. It's not universal, and each individual trial is a little bit different. But Medicare and Medicaid are mandated by law to facilitate participation. They recognize, Congress recognizes the fact that in order for us to get better, in order for us to continue the evidence part of evidence-based medicine, we've got to enroll subjects into these trials in order to learn from their experiences.
So there should be no financial outlay for somebody to participate, and if anything, there might be some financial reward based on the time that they've committed to it, et cetera.
That is correct.
That's
Well
great.
said.
So do you have any?
Cindy,
Oh, yeah.
really quick, I just want to insert some information that's relevant. Every patient gets fully consented to participate. So they are fully informed of those details that we were just talking about up front. There's never anything hidden that there's going to be a surprise. So they're going to be very detailed about if the sponsor is paying for all the medical care, what kind of a patient stipend, so what kind of compensation they might receive, how many visits they're expected to participate in. And all of that information is provided up front. And you know, so a volunteer can choose to participate or not after they've received all that information.
That makes sense. Well, Dr. Carlson, do you have a great story that you can share with us about how you use the research to help you manage clinical needs for one of your senior patients? So how has participating come back around to you in a sense?
Yeah, recently, within the last year, we participated in a dementia trial. And one of the residents of Lakeland Oaks here, where I'm sitting as I speak, did not have any standard treatments available to him. And he enrolled in one of the studies that we were participating in. And he and his family believed that participation helped him significantly in terms of his memory and in terms of his functional status. Until we have the full data available from the trial, we're not going to know for sure if that's real, but his experience is his experience. And he and his wife are convinced that he was better on the drug. And so that is just one example. From my days in oncology, there are many, many more examples where when we run out of standard of care, when we no longer have good options, then individuals have the opportunity to participate in a clinical trial. And there's no guarantee that it's going to help them personally, but it often did. But we know for certain that their participation is going to help their children and their grandchildren. And so I can always say that with certainty. No matter what your personal experience is, you will be helping medical science. You will be helping the future generations.
Mm-hmm. Why is it important for seniors, particularly, to participate in trials right now?
And I think Tracy mentioned it earlier that we need participants that are age appropriate. When you're doing clinical research, it's very easy to enroll the ideal person, i.e. you're doing a drug investigation or drug development for hypertension. And you get a 40-year-old healthy female, and her only problem is hypertension. It's ideal to enroll her into the clinical study in order to find out how the drug affects her. But that is the exception rather than the rule. And then the other aspect of that is for that individual at 40 years of age, does that drug act the same way in an 80-year-old? Well, what we've learned is that it oftentimes doesn't. And so in other words, we have to investigate the 80-year-old. How often do we find the perfect 80-year-old that only has hypertension? Well, I've yet to encounter that individual. So you can imagine the complexity that goes into it. Somebody with osteoporosis, osteoarthritis, heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, and hypertension, enrolling that individual is much more challenging. But we need those individuals to be part of this investigation, evidence-based process in order to push the science forward and make sure that what we're recommending to the 80-year-old actually does what we think it does based upon evidence in 80-year-olds, not in a bunch of healthy 40-year-old women, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. So how do you find out about clinical trials that are going on? I mean, as a person, let's say I'm willing to do it, but I don't know how to find out about it. How do you find out?
And there are multiple avenues to discover that. Tracy might help me remember some of those, but personally, I look for those opportunities for my elders that I care for.
Let's just wait a sec, huh, Tracy?
Yes.
Or maybe
We're a little
maybe-
frozen up.
maybe you want to kick in. Well,
So I can say the wonderful thing, everybody on here is obviously able to get on their computer. And so you can search online for sure for studies that are local to you. Another really great resource is clinicaltrials.gov. So all clinical trials that are occurring around the country and around, well, at least around the US, are on clinicaltrials.gov. And so you can go on to clinicaltrials.gov and search for the indication that you might be looking for. Say it is osteoporosis or something like that. So you could go onto clinicaltrials.gov and just type in osteoporosis, and it'll pull up all the studies. And then you would have to look within that to see if it was in your area.
And then how about y'all? How many trials do you have going on right now, and how could people get involved in your trials?
So we are just getting, we're currently doing some studies here in Lincoln, and now we're getting ready to do some new studies in Austin, but we don't have any of them open yet. So this is just an introduction to the idea that Be Well MD and Be Well Clinical Studies are getting our additional studies set up in Austin. We're just not quite there yet.
Okay. So it sounds like you form a relationship, or you're actually administering the trial. Is that what's happening?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's what Be
And-
Well Clinical Studies does, is we go
Okay.
out and find the studies that we're interested in participating in and bringing to the area there. And, you know, Lake Travis and beyond,
Yes.
for sure.
So if somebody wanted to get like on a list with you to be considered, I mean, how can we connect you with the people that we know?
Oh, that's perfect. So bewellclinicalstudies.com is
Okay.
our website. And that's all together, bewellclinicalstudies.com. And you can go on there and just fill out, there's an opportunity to volunteer, fill out that information. And it really helps me if you do that, because then you can fill in what you're interested in. What do you need help with in terms of an indication maybe you're struggling with? There isn't a great drug available to help, or a device available to help. If you put in, I'm interested in an osteoporosis study, then I can go out there and know I've got some people who are interested in that. It's helpful.
And so you might help connect people. If you're not doing the study yourself, you might connect people to somebody else, or
Yes, we can absolutely do that.
okay. What is the study that you did most recently in Nebraska? Can you tell us about it, or is it hush hush, secret, or?
So no, actually, I think it's exciting to talk about, because it is it's on everybody's mind. But we just recently participated in a COVID vaccine study that is different from the ones that are currently approved, because it is it's viral like particles, which are really protein parts that are actually grown in a plant. So that is unique from what's out there right now. And we had a lot of people who were super excited to be a part of that. Basically, they were able to grow the viral outside, not the genetic inside, but the viral outside proteins. So that's what your immune system's going to recognize. And they grew it in plants. So they were able to use a really unique method to create the vaccine. And a lot of people felt like that might be safer. I can't say that one way or another, but I will tell you that that company is, they are in the process of applying for their emergency use as well. So I could see it being something that becomes available very soon, similar to what's been available with Moderna and Pfizer and the others.
So for example, how many people did you have in that study?
So our site ended up having 36 participants.
Okay.
And because they're using this plant-based method, they got kind of behind the other sites, the other sponsors. And so what they ended up doing was deciding that the US was having a harder time getting patients enrolled, just because so many had already gotten the vaccine. And so they recently, it's a worldwide study. So they found that some of these other countries were able, who haven't received the emergency use vaccine, could help them they're getting 30,000 people enrolled in this study. So they decided about 20,000 of those will be outside of the US.
Okay, just because of the fact that we've already had the shot, et cetera.
Exactly.
Oh, here's a great question. When you do a study, for example, will 50% in any study be receiving a placebo?
Okay, that depends on the phase of the study.
Okay.
So when you are, and I can briefly go into that, a phase 1 study has just a few participants. It's the phase when the drug is being brought into humans for the first time. So we're concerned about safety, and so they look at different doses of the drug and just determine what is the safest dose and make sure there is no major safety issues. A phase 2 study is when you're going to see what you just mentioned, where you're going to have a placebo arm. It may or may not be 50%, depending on the design. It might just be 20%, but there's probably a placebo arm. And that is when you'd have maybe hundreds of people participating in a study. And they're really looking for efficacy, which means, is it effective? Is the drug effective? And so that's why they have to do placebo or not. And then you get to phase 3. They've decided that it's effective and it's safe enough. Now we're going to do a phase 3 study. And in a phase 3 study, they're going to compare if there's another drug out there to see if this drug is preferred. Less safety issues, is it more effective? So that one, usually you'll get one or the other drug, or it might be multiple drugs that you're comparing to. So at least you're getting the treatment. And then a phase 4 study is usually after the drug has been approved for some indication, the sponsor might decide they want to look at a different indication, or they might have to do some kind of marketing analysis. So phase 4 is usually after it's been approved, gotten through phase 3, and the phase 3 is tens of thousands. So that they really do want to make sure it's effective and safe in a bigger population once they get through phase 2 into phase 3.
Interesting. So when you apply, you'll know which phase you're in.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And like I said, in that informed consent, you'll know if it's got a placebo or not. You have all kinds of choices. It's your personal choice to volunteer to be in a study. And there's no pressure to do that. We always just want to educate people about the importance of research. And if it's something you can participate in, that's wonderful.
And what exciting new thing do you have coming up that people might want to participate in? Maybe you can't tell us. I don't know. Maybe it's a secret.
Well, as Dr. Carlson indicated, we have since the 1980s been working on cancer research, and to be looking at Alzheimer's and dementia, I'd say that we're pretty passionate about that and wanting to be a part. There's enough known now that we can do these clinical trials that we think we're going to have the leaps and bounds in terms of discovery that Dr. Carlson and I both experienced in oncology. And so we really are excited to be able to be looking at bringing those types of studies. But we are also very passionate about vaccines, because we know in the big picture, a vaccine can really save lives globally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of see a mix of that. We'll definitely be looking at other indications for our elderly volunteers that are specific to that age. Obviously, we think osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of those things affect a lot of people. We want to be not overlooking those.
Cindy, this is Anne. Dr.
Hey.
Carlson said he's trying to get back in and he's not
Okay.
able to.
Okay. I'm going to have Natalie help him. Natalie, you want to help?
Yes, I will send a new link.
She'll send a new link to him.
Okay.
We'll just keep on talking without him, though. We're doing fine, huh, Tracy?
We are. I wanted to really quickly just say, I think it's important for everybody to understand that clinical research there's 3 really important aspects that I wanted to share. One is that you could find a personal treatment option that you really may need help with, that you haven't been able to find relief in just what medications are out there. The second would be that you have the opportunity to help bring new options for others. And it's a really great way to give back. And I think there's a lot of people who are in that phase in their life where they have time and interest in wanting to give back, and participating in clinical trial is a really amazing way to do that. And I know Dr. Carlson hit on how it will benefit your children and grandchildren. It's amazing to be able to do clinical research in Lincoln, Nebraska, or Cedar Park, Texas, and know that you're having a global impact.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, I want people to know that the feedback that I've received from people who participate in clinical trials is that they get amazing care. A clinical trial has a lot more visits required, and so they get a lot more interaction with their medical team. And oftentimes we'll find things, a patient will come in to participate in a study, we might find something else that's going on, and we'll be able to get them care that they were unaware of. But I just know that the people who have participated like to come and tell me, you know, I just feel like the care was more than I can just get from going to my general doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And so they really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, people in this phase of life, they do want to help. You know, they do want to contribute to society in some way or another. And being able to participate in that way, helping the world, is a really great feeling. I mean, I would like that too. Let's see, we've answered that question. I don't see any other questions. How are we doing, Natalie? Did you get a link to Dr. Carlson? This
I
is just,
resent it, and if Dr. Carlson has a secondary email, could you send that to me, please?
I love Zoom. We always have something going on.
We have to adapt and overcome.
We do.
Yes,
We
I'm going
do.
to forward to him.
So Tracy, have you seen some amazing things that happen on the oncology side that you could tell us about? What has been something really kind of
Oh,
spectacular
yeah.
happen?
So I have to say, I've always, having gotten started my career in oncology, was always really driven to be able to get these studies open quickly and get them access, our patients access to these studies. And, you know, I, being a biochemist, had studied pretty much every pathway in the cell associated with what might cause, you know, cancer to appear. And so I was just, again, driven, once we had the opportunity to get these studies open, get them to our patients, so this might be what saves them. This was my drive. And I was working with a gentleman in marketing, and he said, well, why don't we ask our patients why they chose to participate in research? And it was very humbling for me, because in my mind, I'm getting these open, I'm trying to save lives. And 100% of the patients that we polled here in Lincoln, Nebraska, said they participated to help others. And, you know, these are people lots of times who had just been diagnosed with cancer. And for me, it was just very humbling to hear that they were making that choice. And so it changed my perspective. I realized there's a lot of people who have struggled with cancer, who have had that diagnosis, who say, why is this happening to me? And I found that research gave them an additional purpose to fight, to be like, I'm contributing on top of my own fight to survive, I am contributing. And I will say that there is a gentleman that I remember who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and we had a pancreatic study. And pancreatic cancer, for most people, they understand it's very quick and people don't survive very long. This particular patient was a very important businessman, and over many years had not cared enough for his family, and so was divorced. I don't know if they were official. I think they were divorced, and his children really didn't want to have anything to do with him. He'd focused on business instead of his family, and he participated on this study. And he probably had a 6-month diagnosis. Being on study, he ended up living for 2 years, and he rebuilt all those relationships with his family. And I think, wow, you know, there's value in that, above and beyond what, you know, surviving cancer is, above and beyond him being able to just, you know, for those who he left behind, he was able to repair those relationships. And that really stuck with me. Like, that's really important.
And that impacted a lot more people than just the person who is participating in the event. So it's interesting that you can see that happen too. I think I hear Dr. Carlson coming back in. As soon as he gets on video, he'll pop up. Tracy, what is something that you should look out for if you're participating, somebody wants you to participate in a clinical study? Like, what should be something that you should be concerned about? Hey, Dr. Carlson, we talked about you the whole time. I was just asking the question, what is something that people should look out for if they've been invited to be participating in a clinical trial? Something that might be kind of sketchy or concerned about.
Would you like to answer that, Dr. Carlson?
Oh, sure. whenever somebody is participating in a clinical trial, there are going to be specific criteria by which they are either included or excluded. And the clinicians who work with the individual to enroll them should be fully explaining all of those inclusion and exclusion criteria. And then there should be a full consenting process, meaning the consent form should be given to the individual. They should be allowed to read and ask questions about anything that they're concerned about regarding participating. And if the individual is comfortable at the end of that process, then participation should be very simple and straightforward. If they don't feel comfortable with the answers that they're receiving or the process that is required, then that should raise red flags where they're asking more questions to make sure that they get everything answered before they sign on the dotted line.
Is there any fear for harm to you or death or mutilation, or, I mean, are those potential things that might happen in a clinical study, or no?
Well, certainly those sort of things are expressly avoided. And my job as the investigator is to try to protect any participant against harm. Can I guarantee that nobody in a clinical trial will ever suffer some sort of untoward event? No, unfortunately, that is part of the process. But we do everything possible to minimize that risk.
Excellent. Well, let me see if there's any other questions in here from our participants today. Oh, great question. Do people typically go to a facility and stay in a hospital for treatments, or get outside the clinic and go home to see how it goes?
And the answer is yes, meaning some clinical trials are entirely outpatient. Most of the clinical trials that I supervise and participate in are on the outpatient side, so the individual doesn't require hospitalization. There are other studies, however, that do require hospitalization for things that only can be done in the hospital. So for instance, if you're talking about a new coronary artery procedure that can only be done in the operating room, that is something that absolutely the individual would be hospitalized for. But again, most of the trials are done on the outpatient side, and I personally only participate on those that are done outpatient.
Is there anything that could make it be that you wouldn't qualify for health insurance or Medicare or Medicaid if you participate in a clinical trial?
And the answer is that should never be the case.
Okay.
Meaning, if you qualify for a clinical trial and you participate, that should never exclude you from insurance coverage of any type. And if it does, that is something to bring to the attention of your physician, your clinician, because that would be expressly outside of the mandate that Congress has given CMMS and the VA regarding participation in clinical trials.
Okay. Here's a question. What is the source of the clinical trials? Are they all from drug companies? Is BeWell associated with a particular set of companies?
Yeah, the sponsors of these trials vary. Could be the drug companies, it could be a specific research entity, maybe a university like the University of Texas. And so there are a multitude of different sponsors, maybe a medical device company that has developed a new device. Maybe it's an entrepreneur who's got a new device that he wants to bring to market and needs the clinical data in order to do so. So there are many, many different types of sponsors.
And are you particularly relationships with a certain set of companies, or do you look at all companies when you're doing the clinical trials?
We do not have any restrictions in terms of who we collaborate with. And so most of our collaborations are with the sponsors from Big Pharma, like Sanofi, GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, et cetera. But we don't limit ourselves. Right now, over the last 6-8 months, we've been in negotiations with a company, a dentist in Nebraska, trying to bring a new drug to market. And so her practice is quite small. So we work with almost anybody who we think we can collaborate successfully with.
Here's a question, duration. How long do you have to stay in the area? So when you look at your clinical trials, how long do they normally last? And can you travel, or do you need to stay put, or how does that work?
And each individual study is going to vary in terms of those needs. So for instance, we are just wrapping up one of our studies where there were only 3 visits. One where they got the vaccine, 30 days later when they come in for a checkup to make sure that everything's okay, and then a year later, a telephone call. And that would be on the low end of requirements. There are other studies that might require an individual to come in to the clinic almost on a weekly basis for either blood testing or some sort of monitoring. So the range is quite broad. Each individual study is going to have to be evaluated by the subject, by the participant, in order to decide if it's going to work with their schedule. And so in between those required visits to the clinic, typically those individuals are free to do whatever they want. And we are exploring the opportunities that Zoom and telemedicine is expanding for us, so that we can allow participation even though the individual subject is not physically present. So each individual study has to be looked at in terms of whether or not the participant is going to be able to meet the requirements.
We have another question kind of along those same lines, and it might be the same, that you just said, which is basically it depends on the whatever clinical trial you're in, but it says, how many hours per week do you work? I guess, would you come in? And are these things, all these things you do would take a long time? So when you come in, does it take a long time? I guess it's just depends on which.
Yeah, it's quite variable. Some visits to the clinic might last 30, 45 minutes. Others might last several hours. I know with one of the dementia trials that we were participating in, there were cognitive evaluations that required hours-long visits at times. Not every visit, but some visits. And so yeah, it's all over the board, and that's where those questions at the beginning in terms of the schedule of events and the consenting process, why that's so important, so that the individual knows exactly what they're getting into before they
ahead of time. Yeah. With your medical patients, are you able to identify trials that might be appropriate for individuals based on the care you're providing to them?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So that's a huge benefit. So if you have somebody under your care and they're having issues or things that can't be solved, do you do research about clinical trials that they could participate in and suggest them to them? Do you go to that length?
Yes, that is a regular activity that I do when somebody has exhausted the options of standard of care. And that's when we go into the databases looking for opportunities that they could participate in from a clinical trial perspective.
Mm-hmm. And let me see if we've got any more questions. Dr. Carlson, you were off for a little bit. Was there anything else that you wanted to say? We answered all the questions that we had, and we've been answering. Tracy's done a great job in answering them too, but was there anything else that you wanted to share?
I would just like to close by saying or reiterating what I mentioned earlier, that participating in a clinical trial can never guarantee anything to you individually, but you can know for certain that your participation will help the next generation, your children and your grandchildren. And I think I would encourage all of you to consider participation in any clinical trials that come across your desk.
Excellent. And Tracy gave us the website to go to for your clinical trial website where people could register themselves there. And so you'll have information from potentially people who participated today in the webinar who might be interested in doing a trial. So they'll go in and enter their data in there. It looks like I do have another question. Be Well Medicine as a primary care and also as a concierge is not covered by Medicare. Yeah, so Be Well Medicine is not covered under Medicare. So what are the costs to participate in Be Well MD?
So we have two levels of participation. One is a virtual care. And I just need to mention that virtual care has taken off during the pandemic, and it's one of the silver linings of the pandemic that is now hopefully ending. But anyway, we have a virtual care model at one level, and then a full service in-home, face-to-face level of care. And those price points, I don't have at the top of my head. I try to let the business people deal with that. But roughly concierge fees of $250 versus $400 per month. I think those are the price points that we're at.
That's correct, Dr. Carlson. This is Anne. And yes, $400 per month. That covers everything. So no matter how many times a patient or family members need to contact Dr. Carlson or his medical team, it's one flat fee. There's no extra charges for any of the work that we conduct during that month. So it's $400 for in-person visits and $250 for virtual.
And I have to say the real benefit of Be Well MD that I've seen with friends and other people who have utilized the service is just the coordination of care. Because what I find, I'm the caregiver for my mother, is that you go to all these different doctors and nobody's coordinating it all. And so Dr. Carlson is that person who, I don't want to say is above, but he kind of is looking down at all the care.
The
and
umbrella.
He's able to
We
see
like to call it the umbrella.
the umbrella.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Of
So
all
there's a huge benefit to that. And as adult children, we're trying to work, we're trying to coordinate all this, and it's really hard. So be able to have that one fee and know you can call one person and say, hey, this is what the heart doctor's saying, but the kidney doctor's saying that. So it's great to have somebody coordinating it all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've just got to give a shout out to my team, because I can do a lot of this, but I need the help of my team to really coordinate that well. And it's the communication piece that is oftentimes lacking, and that hopefully we can bring the communication together so that everybody's on the same page and understanding what's happening.
Okay, we've got some other questions. If care is done in-home, do patients use their long-term care insurance to pay? That's a great question. Can you use long-term?
Yeah, each individual policy varies, but that is something that, yes, may be an option, but you have to look at the policy and determine whether or not they would allow you to do that.
Excellent. Are labs extra and added to the monthly fee or included?
From our perspective, there's no added cost. The laboratory would be a service that would be provided typically under your insurance benefit and or your Medicare benefits.
And x-rays too would be covered under that too.
Yeah, precisely.
Okay, if paying for concierge medical, does one need to pay Medicare and supplemental insurance fees in addition to?
Yes, you would definitely want to continue that level of insurance coverage. And then this would be the concierge fee covers those services beyond what Medicare covers.
Right. Okay, terrific. Well, I love that final wrap up. I think that was a great summary. Tracy, it was so great to have you on with your background and your experience that you've had in clinical studies. We're just so pleased that you were able to tell us a little bit more from a different perspective. And Dr. Carlson, as always, we are just so happy that you were able to come and express a new well, it's really just a new way that seniors can help in a sense, right? By participating, but yet they could also be helping themselves at the same time. But it's also just that feeling of giving back and participating. Yes.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you both for participating.
Thank
For
you.
everybody on the webinar today, we will have a YouTube upload soon with today's webinar if you missed part of it or if you want somebody else to watch it. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.